sets it a little bit to the left. 11 yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams had a record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchdown. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown Texas. Touchdown Vince Young. He's done it again. Vince Young has given the Longhorns the lead with 19 seconds to play in the game.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the Lone Star Lowdown podcast. My name is Matt Galatzan and I will be your host. And today I am joined, as always, by my co-host and colleague over at Texas Longhorns on SI, Zach Dimmitt. Zach, how you doing this morning? Or this afternoon, I guess. It's 12:30.
Yeah, 12:30 already. Pretty good early afternoon so far. We're going to get into some season predictions for 2025. So I know it's still a long way away, but might as well go ahead and look at those, and then we'll revisit it later on this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people are putting out way too early top 25s and, way too early top 10 quarterback lists and running back lists and all these different kinds of predictions and things like that. So we figured, why not? Let's take a minute in the desolate off season of college football and give our predictions for our way too early predictions for next season. Before we get into the actual schedule and go game by game, Texas is going to have a tough road ahead of them in 2025. A bunch of new faces, super talented faces, but faces nonetheless that are going to be new. Arch Manning is going to be the full-time starter for the first time. You got a new look wide receiver group, new look offensive line, a lot of new faces on the defense as well after sending 12 guys to the NFL draft this past season. So a lot to look forward to in terms of talent, a lot to look forward to in terms of new faces and things like that. But you never know what you're going to get from season to season. And Texas does have a pretty tough schedule. I'll go through the entire schedule first, and then we'll go back and forth and kind of discuss what we think about each game individually. But I want to get through the whole schedule first so people can kind of keep up with us here. And I'm going to bring it up on screen as well for those watching on the live stream on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Texas kicks off with Ohio State on August 30th in Columbus. And then they move on to a 3-game home stretch against San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston to close out September. And then they have a bye week. And then the meat of the schedule really starts for the Horns. They have their first big SEC road game of the year with a trip to Gainesville and going into the Swamp to take on Florida first weekend of October. Then they head to Dallas on October 11th for the annual Red River rivalry. They take a trip to Kentucky on October 18th and then a trip to Starkville, Mississippi on October 25th. So away from Austin for the entire month of October. That is going to be tough for them to be on the road for that long. It's going to be a blessing for us beat writers who have to travel and go to these games every weekend. We're not going to mind that one bit. And then they have a bye week in the first weekend of November before closing out the regular season at Georgia. Actually, I skipped Vanderbilt. So after Mississippi State, they take on Vanderbilt November 1st to start off November. Then they have the bye week. Then they travel to Athens between the hedges to take on Georgia on November 15th, Arkansas November 22nd at DKR, and then they close out the regular season at home against the Texas A&M Aggies at DKR on November 29th. And then we also have a potential SEC championship game on December 6th. So pretty exciting schedule for Texas next year. There's a lot of big opponents. There's a couple gimmies in there at the beginning, but the rest of that schedule does not necessarily look all that easy. I know there's going to be probably some rival media outlets who are going to say that Texas was favored by the scheduling gods once again. But if you really look at the schedule and the things that these teams did last year and over this offseason and heading into this year, it is not the easiest schedule in the world, especially when you get to SEC play. So before we get into the game-by-game breakdown, Zach, why don't you give me your opinion on what the schedule is for Texas and, how you feel it's shaping up for the Longhorns?
Yeah, I don't really, understand the argument about it being a favorable schedule for Texas. I mean, when you're not at home the entire month of October, and that's a pretty big deal. And so, that's going to be obviously the most important part of their season right there. Um, how they come off of it when they, that bye week obviously is in November, but how they come off of October and head into November with the road game against Georgia, it's going to pretty much define their whole season. So, I really don't think it's an easy schedule necessarily. When you have to start on the road against defending national champions, go on the road to the defending SEC champions, and then you got some tough road games against Florida and sneaky Kentucky team that had their moments last season. So I think it's far from easy schedule, but ending off the season with 2 rivalry games at home, that helps a little bit. So obviously remains to be seen, but definitely lots of exciting moments to be had next season for sure.
Yeah, and I'm currently looking through the last time that Texas had that kind of a break from being in Austin for that period of time, and I'm all the way back. It's been years since they've had to deal with that kind of road trip and being away from Austin in the friendly confines of DKR. But it's not just the fact that they're away from Austin and on the road. Like typically in the past, if they had a situation like this, some of these games would still be in the state of Texas, right? Now they have to go back and they're traveling to Florida. They're traveling to, Kentucky. They get one game in Dallas. They travel to Kentucky. Then they head to Mississippi before they're finally back home. So a lot of out-of-state travel for them. I mean, I've gone all the way back on this schedule to 2018 so far, and I still can't find an example of this long of a road trip for Texas in any of their past football seasons. So, I'm going to go back a couple more here. I'm all the way back now in 2015. Nope. Let's check out 2014. That's also a no. So long time since something like this happened for Texas, and that's going to be very interesting to see how a team with a lot of new faces kind of deals with that. Constantly being on the road, constantly traveling, short weeks due to that travel for, especially Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi, because they're going to have to board a plane to get on those flights and head to those games. So should be interesting to see how Texas handles that kind of adversity with a first-year starting quarterback and a whole new offensive line and all these different pieces. So
it's not ACC travel. Texas isn't going cross country necessarily for some of these, but it's not heading to Baylor. It's not heading to TCU, even taking a long trip to Lubbock. It's not those kind of travel games anymore. This is a lot different, of a schedule than, what Texas has been used to, obviously, with the Big 12. So, at least Texas and the Longhorns aren't having to travel cross country with some of these ACC teams. Got to feel for some of those guys.
Oh yeah, and in the Big Ten too, right? I mean, the Big Ten with
right.
those California schools now, that's got to be really rough on them to, potentially head all the way over to like USC to Pennsylvania at some point. It's going to happen. It's going to be over at Penn State. So I mean, that's going to be real interesting. I mean, yeah, I went all the way back to 2008 on this schedule, and I couldn't find anything like that. So this is kind of unprecedented for Texas. Maybe I missed one. If I did, somebody can comment or at me on Twitter, which, has been a consistent thing lately because I make mistakes just like every other human being. But let's dive into the schedule prediction, Zach. Texas obviously kicks off the season August 30th at the Shoe, Columbus. Big time matchup, preseason number 1, Ohio State, according to ESPN, or way too early preseason number 1, according to ESPN. Texas is ESPN's way too early number 2. These rankings came out before obviously before the transfer portal, but we're going to go with ESPN rankings because I didn't like Joel Klatt's rankings, so we're going to go with those. Why don't you start off with your prediction for Ohio State, and then I'll come back after that.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about it, and I think Texas probably loses this one. I just think that on the road against the defending national champions, it'll be quite the scene if the Longhorns are able to pull it off. A lot of people are going to be wanting to see Arch Manning come away with that upset, the season opener, and I think that there's going to be some early season disappointment for Texas at that point. It's not going to be a blowout or anything, but losing by 10 or something like that is realistic in my opinion. The only thing obviously with Ohio State is how Julian Sain is going to play at quarterback. Will Howard wasn't a star or anything like that for the Buckeyes, but super solid veteran, obviously with the Steelers now. How do they continue that quarterback play? How does Sain connect with Jeremiah Smith is going to be big. But I just think Ohio State, coming off the championship, still led by Ryan Day, they're going to be a tough out, especially on the road that first game. So I think that it's going to be Texas's first road loss since 2022 against Oklahoma State, I believe. So I think that it finally happens. They lose that first road game in about 3 seasons now. That'd be pretty wild. So if they could pull it off and continue that streak, but I don't think it happens. I think the Arch Manning era starts off 0-1. For the final score, I'm going to say Ohio State 31, Texas 23.
Okay. All right. So Zach has Texas starting 0-1. I right off the bat here, we're going to disagree. So I really like that. I have Texas winning this game. I think that Ohio State just has too much to replace. Julian Sain's a very talented quarterback, but Texas's defense, I think, is going to be able to get after him with the pass rush. It's going to be tough to deal with Jeremiah Smith, but they did it last year, so I think they can do it again. Obviously, Jahdae Barron's not going to be a part of that equation anymore, but they are going to return a lot of talent in that secondary. I think they have the best pass rush in the country, so I have Texas winning this one 34-21. I think Arch comes out of the gates hot. I think he throws for, probably over 200 yards and a couple touchdowns. He might rush for another one. I think that, given this game is the first game on the schedule for Texas, as opposed to week 3 or week 4, they're going to be spending their entire offseason preparing for this one. So I like their chances here. And I like Arch's gamesmanship in a tough road environment here. So I got Texas 1-0 coming out of Columbus. Heading into week 2 as the number 1 team in the country after that, because they knocked off the Buckeyes. We'll kind of breeze through these next 3 because I'm pretty sure we all have them as wins. We got Texas facing San Jose State on September 6th. I've got Texas 61-13 in that one, Zach. Sorry. I got to go back to Ohio State for a second. My score was 34-21 for that game. So,
right.
But yeah, back to San Jose State. I've got Texas 61-13 in Austin on September 6th. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, this game is where Steve Sarkisian's job comes to a breaking point. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's hard to say that it'll be a shutout completely. San Jose is actually a pretty solid Mountain West team, but on the road in Austin, I don't see it anywhere over 10. I think that it'll be 1 touchdown allowed by Texas defense late in the game. I'll go 51-7.
Okay, 51-7, Zach on San Jose State. Next up, UTEP on September 13th. What do you got on that one, Zach?
Yeah, this is a little bit different. I think San Jose State is a level up from UTEP. UTEP, I was just checking, hasn't had a winning season in like 3 years. So going to be tough for the Miners making that cross-country trip or cross-state trip to Austin, but I think this is out of the three. This is the one where Texas gets the shutout. I'm gonna say 45-0.
Okay, UTEP, my mom's alma mater.
Okay.
I feel bad for the Miners here, but you know, it basically is a cross country trip coming all the way from El Paso
Right.
to Austin, as big as the state of Texas is. So I've got Texas 58-3 in this one, moving to 2-1 on the season. Next up, Sam Houston State on September 20th. I got another blowout for Texas here. I've got 65-7. I think that Sam Houston is a team that could eventually become, kind of a decent group of five team. I'm not sure they're there yet, but I honestly don't know a whole lot about them because I honestly forgot they existed. So I've got 65-7 Texas here. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, I think another one of those games where it's going to be a late score, maybe a pair of field goals. I'm going to go 51-6 Texas.
Okay. So then we move into the bye week, September 27th. Zach and I will be kicking back and relaxing that weekend for sure, ahead of this grind in October. But then Texas's first big SEC road game, as I mentioned earlier, they head to the Swamp to take on the Florida Gators, led by quarterback DJ Lagway, Billy Napier, the head coach. I think this is going to be a lot tougher than a lot of people think. Florida was not the best team last year, but they have some talent on that roster. I think it's going to be a super tough environment. I think DJ Lagway is an excellent quarterback. He could, by the end of the season, be the best quarterback in the country. He's that good. He's that talented. Right up there with Arch. So I do have Texas winning, but it's a tight one. What do you have on that one, Zach?
Yeah, this game's actually going to be on my wedding day, so hopefully that time works out, and I'll be able to watch that at a good time, not during the wedding. So
don't worry, we got you covered.
Yeah, thanks. But no, just all jokes aside, I think the reason I say that Texas won't beat Ohio State is because the other two, I think they're going to lose at least one of the three tough road games. And spoiler alert, I think they'll beat Georgia on November 15th. So Florida will be a win, in my opinion. I think they go 2-1 in the three tough road games and pick up the win at Florida. I think by losing that opener to Ohio State, it'll set Texas right after the 4 weeks off, or not 4 weeks off, but 3 easy games, a week off, and then head into Florida. I think that bye week is nicely placed, and so any sort of lingering injuries they might have from fall camp heading into the end of September, they'll be able to get right before they head to the Swamp. So yeah, I think Florida definitely should not be underestimated. On ESPN's early top 25, they're number 18. So I don't think they're being overlooked at all. I think they had a slow start to the season last year and were able to kind of bounce back a little bit. It's not gonna be a similar situation when Texas beat Florida in Austin this past year. I think it'll be a lot closer. So I'm gonna go Texas winning a little bit of a lower scoring one. I'm gonna say 20-13.
Okay, I've got Texas 31-27 here. I think it's kind of a quarterback duel. Texas with that elite secondary and that elite pass rush is going to do their best to slow down DJ Lagway, but I think his legs are kind of an X factor in there as well. So I think Florida is able to score a little bit more. But Texas ends up winning 31-27. So I've got Texas 4-1 at this point. We both have Texas 4-1 at this point. So, and then we move on to the second Saturday in October, that big showdown with Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma is majorly improved this year. When this way too early top 25 rankings came out, they were still trying to rebuild and figure some things out in the transfer portal. I think they did some great things to improve themselves after that. They got John Mateer, the quarterback, who I think is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. They recently signed Jaden Ott, the elite running back out of Cal, so they're going to have a much better offense this year. I think Brent Venables' defense is going to be pretty solid. His back is a little bit against the wall as the head coach. He's going to be a little bit on the hot seat. So if he doesn't perform this year, then there's potentially a change that could be made there. So they're going to come out on fire. They're going to want to beat Texas and send a message earlier in the season. I don't think they're going to do it. I think Texas is just a better football team all around. It's going to be, probably a little bit tougher than it was this past year. Texas, I believe the score of that game was around 31-13 or something like that, if I remember correctly. This past year,
31-3, I think.
Oh, was it 3? So, yeah, Texas just dominated that game. I think Oklahoma scores a little bit more this time, but I still have Texas winning by double digits. I have Texas winning 37-21 in Dallas. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, Texas was going to win that game this past season, no matter what. Oklahoma just wasn't that talented on offense. However, the Sooners were very, very plagued by injuries in that game, and so I don't see that kind of luck happening again with their key contributors, and especially when it comes to adding John Mateer at quarterback. Michael Hawkins, he made some nice plays in the Red River rivalry this past season, but it just wasn't enough. And by the time Oklahoma was trying to catch up, it was just too late. And so when you add in a quarterback like Mateer, we saw it with Dylan Gabriel in 2023, how big of a difference that made for OU. And then Jay Knott, like you said, at running back. A lot of Texas fans on Twitter, as soon as they saw Ott commit to OU, they were saying, "Oh, how this guy, what has he done? Who cares about him? Don't care about this commitment." But I'd watch out. Just be careful. I don't think it's wise to overlook OU this season. This past year, even without the injuries, I don't think the roster they had was going to do anything against the experience that Texas had. So things will be a lot different. Like you mentioned, Brent Venables potentially going to be playing for his job or coaching for his job. OU hosts Michigan, I believe, in the second game of the season. So how that goes, could determine how they head into Dallas. So I still think Texas is going to win. I think a little bit higher scoring Red River rivalry. I'm gonna go 41-31 Texas.
Yeah, and they still have Deion Burks, they still have Jaden Gibson, Giovanni Gibson at wide receiver, Isaiah Satanga's there as well, and they have Jaden Knott, Javante Barnes, Xavier Robinson, and Taylor Tatum all there at running back. So they've got some talent there on offense. Michael Fasusi could also be a starter freshman there on the offensive line, a guy that Texas was really hard after this past recruiting cycle. So a lot of talent on that Oklahoma roster, but we both have Texas winning in that one. Another road trip for Texas there on October 18th. They head to Kentucky to take on Mark Stoops, the guy that was the Texas A&M coach for about 5 minutes before that all fell apart. Texas handled business against Kentucky this past year. I think they handled business against Kentucky this year again in Lexington. I have Texas winning 30-13 in this one and moving to 5-1 on the season. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, we saw Kentucky give Georgia a little bit of a scare in Lexington last year, so Texas can kind of avoid that.
They beat Ole Miss too. So they had some wins last year.
Right, Kentucky was not a bad team at all. They were just super inconsistent this past season. Even when Texas beat them, I forgot the final score of that game, but Kentucky kind of made a little bit of a run there in the second half to kind of make things somewhat interesting. So. Obviously Texas was able to pull away and it wasn't too much of a contest, but they showed signs last year, and so like OU, like Florida, be wise for Texas fans not to overlook Kentucky, and think these 2 straight road games are gimme. I think it'll be a lot closer than people expect. Obviously on the road, just how it goes. I see kind of a final score similar to how the Arkansas game was last year, a little bit lower scoring. I'm going to go Texas 21, Kentucky 16.
Okay, I like that. Kentucky, Kentucky has a way of showing up against big time opponents, especially when they're in Lexington. Stoops is a defensive guy. He knows how to slow down explosive offenses. We saw it last year with Georgia, and with Ole Miss. So I like that there. Another road game here for Texas to close out October. We get Mississippi State in Starkville. Jeff Lebby heading into his second year in Starkville. Still a rebuilding program, but they're improving. Jeff Lebby is an offensive mastermind, so he's going to have these guys ready to go. Expect them to be much improved over last year. What do you got on that one, Zach?
Yeah, this was kind of tough because I think Mississippi State, it wasn't the best year for them last year, but on the road, I think they're going to give Texas a decent shot. It'll be close in the first half, but Texas will be able to pull away. It's not really a trap game. I don't see any way the Longhorns could probably lose that one, but I'm gonna go Texas 27, Mississippi State 17.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a similar spread there. I got Texas 35-21. I think you're right. I think it's probably going to be a little bit closer in the first half, and then Texas is going to pull away in the second. I think Arch there is going to have a little bit of a field day against that Mississippi State defense, and put up some big numbers in that one. So I've got Texas 35-21 there. All right, so now the Longhorns after that will move into November, where they will have 3 of their next 4 games at home, starting with Vanderbilt on November 1st. Vanderbilt gave Texas a lot of problems last year. That was a game in which Diego Pavia was was Johnny Manziel reincarnated. He almost helped the Commodores pull off an upset there. Texas ended up winning 27-24. It should have been a lot. The score should have been different than that. That score is a little bit deceiving. Texas had the defensive touchdown that was called back by kind of a BS targeting on Vernon Broughton. So the score of that game probably should have been 34-17, but because of that, there was that big swing there in the score. I honestly don't remember. Is Diego Pavia back this year, Zach? Because he had that thing where he was trying to get more eligibility.
I believe he is coming back.
That's what I thought. So,
from my understanding,
yeah. So Diego Pavia, assuming that he's back,
yeah.
This is
seems like he is here.
Yeah. So this game is going to be a little bit tougher than I think people are expecting. I think Texas is going to be able to score as much as they want. Whether or not they can slow down Pavia is another question. This is going to be another case, I think, where Texas has a little bit tougher of a first half and they pull away in the second half. Being back at home for the first time in a month, I think Texas fans are going to be hungry to see the team, and they're going to be locked in and wild for that game. So I think that's what kind of puts Texas over the hump at the end and helps them pull away. I've got Texas 42-27 in Austin. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt, definitely on the rise, obviously with Coach Clarkley, but they were riding a little bit of that magic last season. Obviously beat Alabama at home. Alabama was number 1 at the time, and then they kind of used that momentum carrying into that Texas game. Picked up another big win in that stretch. I forget who they beat, but Vanderbilt. They obviously proved they can hang with the big boys, but I think that in Austin, it's going to be a little bit too much. The program's definitely on the rise, but maybe another season or two down the line, they'll be able to pull off a big road win like that. I mean, Vanderbilt, they couldn't even beat anyone leading up to in the seasons leading up to what they did last year. So they got to start out somewhere. I think the road wins will eventually come, but this will not be one of those games. Even with some of the magic of Diego Pavia, I don't see it being enough for Vanderbilt. I think I agree with you. It's going to be on the higher scoring side for Texas. I'm going to say 37-20 for Texas.
Okay. And yeah, I just looked it up. Diego Pavia is indeed returning for Vanderbilt next year, so he's going to be another weapon for them. All right. Now we get to arguably the biggest game on the schedule for Texas next year. Ohio State is the highest ranked team that they're going to play in the preseason, but I think that this Georgia game carries a lot more weight. I think it carries a lot more of a story based on what happened last year. Obviously, their regular season matchup last season, Texas got absolutely blitzed in the first half. Made up a good fight in the second half. I thought they really won the second half of that game for the most part, but they still ended up losing 30-15 there. Acquitted themselves much better in the SEC championship in the second matchup. Nearly won that game if it wasn't for a couple field goals missed by Scholarship Burt and a absolutely out of nowhere performance from Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. Georgia has Stockton returning, the running back Nate Frazier, Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp at tight end, some good defensive players coming back, and C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, K.J. Bolden, and Dalen Everett. They do lose Carson Beck, who, had he played that entire SEC title game, I think Texas wins that game, which is kind of crazy to say. They also lose Tate Ratledge, Trevor Etienne, Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks, Dan Jackson, Smile London, and Mikhail Williams to the NFL draft. So a lot of losses for them, but this isn't another team on your schedule. This is the Georgia Bulldogs. They're going to reload. They're built like Alabama was built. They have a first round pick. There's another NFL draft pick right behind them on the depth chart. They're going to be locked and loaded and ready to go. Arch Manning going into what could be the toughest environment he faces all season. I'm a little skeptical on the Longhorns' chances here. This is, at this point, I have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have them 9-1 after, or 9-0 heading into this game. After this one, I've got them 9-1. I think Georgia gets the better of the Longhorns again here. I've got the Bulldogs winning 31-27 in a tight game. I think Arch probably throws a pick or two here against that defense. Kirby Smart is one of the better defensive minds in the history of college football, so I think he's going to have a game plan for them. He has figured out how to stop Sark so far. In the SEC championship this past year, Quinn Ewers threw for over 350 yards, and Texas still only scored 19 points. So there's something to be said there. I do think that Texas will be able to run the football better in this game with C.J. Baxter back in a healthy running back room. But I think at the end of the day, Georgia pulls this one off with a late score. I've got Georgia 31-27 here. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, I kind of had hinted at this a little bit ago, but I don't know, just something about it just tells me that Texas won't lose three in a row to Georgia. There's not necessarily any rhyme or reason to that. I just think that if Arch Manning is going to have a Heisman moment next year, I think it'll come in this game, right there near the end of the season. I see it as being very unlikely that Texas beats both Ohio State and Georgia on the road. Add Florida to that mix as well. I don't see it likely that they beat all three of those teams. So one of the losses is going to come to either Georgia or Ohio State most likely. And I think that by this point in the season, November, I think Texas will be able to pull it off. I mean, Georgia, they definitely addressed some big issues at receiver. Carson Beck, it wasn't his best season last year, but the receivers also couldn't catch anything at all. And so adding Zachariah Branch from USC, really good kick returner, really really good speedster, and then Noah Thomas, Texas A&M transfer. He's a big bodied guy, pretty secure hands. So I think Georgia in both games, their receivers had some big missed opportunities, and that could have made the deficit even bigger for Texas in both of those losses. So adding two guys like that on offense is a big deal for sure. However, we got to see how Gunnar Stockton can do now that Texas has probably gone back and not yet, but eventually we'll go back and see that film of him in the SEC championship and figure out that okay, we kind of can know what this guy can do now instead of having him just be thrown into the fire after Beck got injured. I think that kind of threw Texas off a little bit in the SEC title game. So I don't know, just something about this just makes me feel like Texas will be able to pull it off. We've seen Sarkisian be able to lead sort of a road warrior mentality with Texas during his time in Austin, and so I think this will be right up there with one of the best road wins in his tenure. I don't know. I just feel like Texas won't lose both Ohio State and Georgia, and they'll be able to pull this off. I think Gunnar Stockton will have a hard time. Colin Simmons maybe get a sack or two on him, and I think that's the key. Is the new weapons they have won't be an issue if you can stop Stockton at quarterback. So I think Texas will hold on for a lower scoring one. I'm going to go 23-17.
Okay, so we both have Texas at 9-1 now at this point, heading into their final two home games of the regular season. First up on that list is Arkansas on November 22nd. Arkansas hates Texas more than they like themselves. Arkansas is not going to be a good football team next year, in my opinion. I have Texas winning pretty comfortably here. I think that in my scenario, Texas is coming off a tough loss. I think that's going to motivate them to really put the hammer down on Arkansas and Austin. I have Texas winning this game 35-10, and really sending a message that they're still one of the best teams in the country after that loss to Georgia.
Yeah, I agree with you that Arkansas will probably be one of the worst teams in the SEC next year. They had the Razorbacks had their moments last season. I think that the Texas game that was 20-10 final score for the Longhorns. I think that final score was a little bit deceiving. 10-point loss isn't too bad, but I think Texas kind of had their foot on that game the whole time, and I don't see that happening again. I think this will be similar to how the Florida game went for Texas last year, where they just kind of blow the doors off of them and run away with it. In my predictions, I have Texas beating Georgia, but there could be sort of a hangover in the next week against Arkansas. I don't see it happening. I think having that monkey off their back with beating Georgia after, losing two straight to them, that'll be a little bit of a relief heading into Arkansas. And I don't see it being close either. I think Texas 35, Arkansas 13.
Okay. So now we have Texas both at 10-1, heading into the regular season finale against the Texas A&M Aggies. Zach, I'm going to let you go first here. This is, I will say though, I believe this is going to be a much tougher game than people are going to give the Aggies credit for heading into this season. But Zach, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. 17-7 was a score this past year, and it was just such a weird game. I don't know. Texas A&M didn't score an offensive touchdown. Their only score was a fluky long pick six that Quinn Ewers offensive pass from Quinn Ewers that got tipped. It was just such a weird game. Texas pretty much dominated for the most part from after that first goal line stop. They were able to kind of just shut down the Aggies offense the entire night. So it was just kind of a weird game to get a hold on. But Texas defense was the main reason that Marcel Reed wasn't able to do anything. So I think it'll be a little bit similar in that regard when it comes to more of a low scoring game, rivalry game. But I think Texas A&M will make it a little bit closer. I just don't think the offense is going to get shut out of the end zone again. But it won't be enough in Austin. It's going to be really tough for Marcel Reed, in my opinion, in that environment. We'll see if he's able to keep that starting job throughout the season. I know they got Jacob Zeno, the UAB quarterback transfer behind him. He's got some experience. You never know if they make a change, because that add a spark to A&M's offense at the end of the year. Obviously that's way in advance. We don't know, but I think Aggies will make it a little bit closer than people expect, and I'm going to go Texas 24, A&M 21.
Okay. You said 24-21?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a lot of respect for what this A&M team has done in the transfer portal. They added the 3 new receivers. Marcel Reed's a hell of a quarterback. They've got a dynamic running back tandem with Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens. I think this defense is going to be pretty good. Not as good as it was last year, I don't think, because they lost those 3 big bodies off the defensive line with Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, and Shamar Turner. So I do think they make this tough on Texas. I think Marcel Reed is going to take a step forward. It'll be a tight game to start the fourth quarter, but I think Texas ends up winning this one 38-28, moving them to 11-1 on the regular season for me, 11-1 on the regular season for you. And that is good enough to put them into the SEC championship game in Atlanta. I'm still trying to decide who I think they're going to play here in the SEC championship. I'm kind of waffling back and forth. Do you have a pick for who you think they're going to face in the SEC championship?
Yep. I think as a result of Texas beating Georgia, the Longhorns then will be able to be that number 1 seed technically in the SEC championship. They'll probably finish first in the conference if the way I predicted, if it lines up, that means they would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'd go 8-0 in SEC play. So Georgia, I think, would be right behind them at 7-1 in conference. And I think as a result of Texas beating Georgia on November 15th, according to my predictions, I think Georgia will then get their revenge on Texas in the SEC title game again for the second straight year. I know that would be very tough for Longhorns fans to swallow, but I think beating Georgia in Athens will be Texas' defining moment next season during the regular season. But then the SEC championship, again, I think it'll be another loss. It'll be a tough one to swallow. But you're not beating Georgia twice in the same season. I just don't see it happening. Maybe if they lose to Georgia on November 15th, maybe that allows them to turn around and beat them in Atlanta in December. But I think Georgia wins this game. I'm going to go 27-21.
Okay. See, and we have another difference here. I have Texas. I was waffling back and forth between Texas facing Georgia and Texas facing LSU in the SEC championship. I think LSU is going to be a really good football team, but I was just looking at their schedule. I think it's a little bit too tough for them to make it through. So I'm going to go with Texas versus Georgia as well in a rematch in the SEC championship. Only I have Texas winning this one in Atlanta 24-20. I think that, kind of like you said, it's hard to imagine that at this point, I have Georgia having 3 straight wins over Texas going back to last year. I think that Texas finally gets the better of the Bulldogs here. Wins 24-20 on a late touchdown from Arch Manning to DeAndre Moore. And they win that game 24-20 and head to the college football playoff as arguably the number 1 overall seed. And finally capture that SEC title, Steve Sarkisian's second conference championship in 3 years, in his 3rd straight conference title appearance and his third straight college football playoff appearance. So my final overall record for the Longhorns in the regular season is 12-1, with the lone loss coming to Georgia on November 15th and finishing the season as SEC champions. Zach has them also at 12-1, but suffering, or 12-2, or sorry, 11-2. I'm bad at math today, Zach. Zach has the Longhorns at 11-2, losing to Ohio State in week 1 in a tight game, and then falling again to Georgia in the SEC title game. Still a college football playoff team in that scenario as well. Probably not the number 1 overall seed, obviously, but they're going to have a pretty good seed there, kind of like they did this past year when they get a lower seed in the first round, and they don't have to be one of those teams that deals with a bye that this past year in the college football playoff, every team that had a bye lost. So
Yeah.
So that's something Texas won't have to deal with next year in Zach's scenario. But yeah, let us know. Comment on this podcast, or add us on Twitter what you think the Texas final record and outlook for the season might be. You can give us your game by game predictions, or just your record predictions. Your predictions for the SEC title, college football playoff, whatever. We'll come back. We might not do it this week. We might do it next week or another show going forward, and we'll give you our college football playoff predictions, the way too early version. And we'll kind of go through that, kind of similar to what we did today with the regular season. And we'll also come back, after the summer, and after maybe probably before the regular season, I would guess, and kind of revisit these predictions and update them a little bit, perhaps, and give you all an updated outlook on what the season might look like heading into 2025. But that's going to do it for another edition of the Lone Star Lowdown podcast. You can listen to us on pretty much every major podcast platform out there, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorites. If we're not on there, let us know, and we will do our best to make sure we're on your favorite platform. We're also live on X, Facebook, and YouTube daily, so you can catch us there as well. And don't forget to check out Texas Longhorns on SI for all your latest news and notes regarding Longhorn sports. If you enjoyed the podcast here today, please make sure to hit the like button and the sub button on your favorite platform. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Fight.